1. The return to Syrup Village. The Thousand Sunny dropped anchor just off the coast, close enough that the crew could see the familiar green hills rolling up from the shore. Usopp stood at the railing longer than anyone else, arms crossed, chin up, doing his very best impression of a man who was completely calm about all of this. He was not calm about all of this. Inside, his stomach had been doing slow, nervous flips since the lookout first shouted the name of the island. Syrup Village. Home. And more specifically, Kaya. You've been standing there for 20 minutes, Luffy said, appearing beside him with a mouth full of meat. Are you gonna go or not? I'm building anticipation, Usopp said. It's a storytelling technique. You wouldn't understand. Luffy didn't understand. He also didn't care. He shoved Usopp toward the plank anyway. 2. Kaya was waiting. What Usopp didn't know yet, what he'd find out only a little later, and it would nearly undo him when he did, was that Kaya had spent every single one of those years paying closer attention to his journey than he ever imagined. She kept the newspaper clippings. She kept every rumor that drifted through the village about the Straw Hats, sorted and reread until the paper softened at the folds. When a traveling merchant once mentioned offhand that he'd seen the Sunny pass near some island out east, she'd asked him a dozen follow-up questions before he could even sit down for tea. She never told anyone how often she looked at the horizon from her window. Some things you just keep for yourself. 3. The first meeting, she was waiting by the old dock when he came into view, and for a moment neither of them moved. Usopp, who could talk his way through almost any situation on Earth, found himself with absolutely nothing to say. Kaya broke first, smiling, the same warm, quiet smile he remembered, though something about her seemed steadier now, more grown into herself. You're late, she said. You told me 3 years, once. That was a long time ago. I got held up, Usopp said, recovering his voice and immediately overcorrecting into nonsense, the way he always did when he was nervous. Fighting a sea king the size of this whole island. Bare-handed. It only let me go because I told it such a sad story about my childhood that it started crying and forgot to eat me. Kaya laughed, really laughed, and something in Usopp's chest loosened for the first time since the ship had come into view. There he is, she said. I was starting to worry you changed too much. 4. Kaya notices the change. They walked a little, and Kaya studied him sideways as they went, the way he carried himself now, the confidence that hadn't been there before, layered over all the same familiar nervous habits. You have changed, though, she said eventually. Not the stories. Those are exactly as ridiculous as ever. A small smile. But you. You stand differently. You used to talk big because you were scared of everything. Now you talk big and I don't think you're scared at all. Usopp considered that. I'm scared of plenty of things, he admitted. Sea kings. Marines. Zoro when he hasn't eaten. But I guess I stopped being scared of trying. That part's different, yeah. I noticed, Kaya said quietly. You're not the boy who used to sit on that hill and tell me stories to avoid going home. You actually went and lived one. 5. A walk through the village. They ended up wandering the old paths without really deciding to, past the fence he used to sit on, past the hill that overlooked the sea, past the mansion gate where a much younger Usopp used to shout ridiculous warnings about pirate attacks just to make a sick girl in the window laugh. Do you remember this spot? Kaya asked, stopping at the hill. Are you kidding? I invented at least 4 entire wars up here. You did, she agreed, sitting down in the grass. I used to wait for you every day. I never told you that. I thought it would sound strange. Usopp sat beside her, quieter now. It doesn't sound strange. 6. A conversation about the past. The sun was starting to lower, turning the sky a soft gold over the water. Kaya pulled her knees up and wrapped her arms around them, looking out at the horizon instead of at him. After you left, she said, it was very quiet here. Quieter than I expected. I didn't realize how much noise you brought into my life until it was gone. Kaya, I'm not saying it to make you feel guilty, she added quickly. I'm glad you went. You needed to. She paused, searching for the words. I used to sit at that window and watch the sea, hoping I'd see your ship coming back. Most days I knew I wouldn't. I looked anyway. Usopp didn't say anything clever back. For once, he didn't have anything clever to say. 7. Usopp tells the truth. Can I tell you something true? He said instead. Not a story. An actual true thing. Kaya turned to look at him, surprised. Usopp telling the truth on purpose was rare enough to notice. There were nights out there, he said, where everything went wrong. Where I was sure I wasn't strong enough, or brave enough, or anything enough. And on those nights I used to think about you. Not because it made the fear go away, it didn't, really, but because I didn't want to come back and tell you I gave up. I wanted to come back and have a real story to tell, one I didn't have to make up. So I was your reason to keep going, Kaya said softly. One of them, Usopp admitted. A pretty big one. 8. Kaya asks directly. She was quiet for a long moment, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Usopp, she said finally, was I really that important to you? It wasn't a question she asked lightly. He could hear that in her voice, like she'd wondered about the answer for a long time and never let herself ask out loud before now. 9. Usopp's confession. Usopp rubbed the back of his neck, the nervous habit outliving every version of himself he'd become since he first left this island. Yeah, he said. You were. You are. He took a breath, steadying himself the way he did before something that actually mattered, instead of before a lie. I missed you every single one of those years, Kaya. Not in a small way. And it was never just about coming back a pirate. I wanted to come back as someone you'd be proud to know. Someone worth all that waiting. I was already proud of you, Kaya said. Even before you left. Yeah, well. He gave a small, crooked smile. I wanted to earn it too. 10. Kaya's answer. Kaya looked down at her hands, then back up at him, her voice steadier than her expression. I never stopped waiting, she said. And somewhere in all that waiting, what I felt for you stopped being what I thought it was. It became something else. Something bigger. She let out a small, nervous laugh. I've been trying to find a way to tell you that since you got off the ship. 11. The first kiss. For a second, Usopp genuinely thought he'd misunderstood her. He opened his mouth, probably to say something enormously unhelpful, and Kaya didn't give him the chance. She leaned in and kissed him. It was soft and a little uncertain, the kind of kiss that comes from someone who has waited a long time to be brave enough to give it. Usopp went completely still for a moment, like his brain had simply stopped processing information, before he finally kissed her back, gentle and a little shaky. When they pulled apart, the sky had gone properly orange around them, and neither of them said anything at first. 12. After the kiss, Usopp opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. Kaya started laughing, delighted. I don't think I've ever seen you speechless before. I'm not speechless, Usopp said, immediately proving that he was, in fact, speechless. I'm choosing my words. Very carefully. This is a strategic pause. Of course it is, Kaya said, still smiling, taking his hand. 13. A small promise. They sat together as the light faded, her hand in his, the sea calm and gold in front of them. Next time, Usopp said eventually, I'm not staying gone as long. I'm not making you wait years again. You'd better not, Kaya said. I'll hold you to that. I mean it. I'll write actual letters, not just stories the crew tells secondhand through some merchant 3 islands away. Kaya squeezed his hand. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. 14. A comedic ending. By the time they made it back to the Sunny, it was already too late for secrets. Luffy was sitting on the railing, grinning ear to ear, and the second Usopp stepped aboard, Luffy pointed straight at him and yelled, "You kissed her." Usopp froze. "Wah, how do you already?" Chopper told me. Luffy said cheerfully. Usopp turned slowly toward Chopper, who was already backing away with his hooves raised defensively. "You told me not to keep secrets from my captain, Usopp. You said that last week." "That was about the emergency snack stash, Chopper, that was a completely different context." Kaya, standing at the base of the gangplank, laughed so hard she had to sit down. 15. The final scene. The Sunny pulled away from the dock not long after, sails catching the evening wind, the crew's noise already rising back to its usual chaotic volume behind him. Kaya stood on the shore and watched it go, the way she always had, except this time it was different. This time she wasn't just hoping he'd come back. Usopp turned around at the railing and waved, grinning wide, no nerves left in it at all. Because now he knew something he hadn't fully understood before he left the first time. No matter how far the sea carried him, or how many impossible stories he still had left to live, there was a hill overlooking the water in Syrup Village, and someone standing on it, and a place that would always, always be home.